my mask as well. I follow my leadership. Program director, thank you very much. I think you almost got my name correct. I struggled with it for quite some time when I was growing up. Only after varsity I managed to get through it, but it's pronounced Chimhandamba. Government heads, or department heads, chairpersons, CEOs, industry captains, distinguished guests, members of the media, and other partners, thank you for allowing us to share experience, or our experience of investing in the KZN and all protocol observed. I think I've been given a huge challenge today to try and give hope and reasons to why KZN remains quite an interesting investment destination. So, but what I'll do, I'll start by introducing our company and talk around it, and then get into some of the reasons that underpin our investment in Richards Bay, and why we strongly feel that it remains a very strong investment destination. So as a way to introduce our company, Nyanza Light Metals, I would like to share a bit of some history and close off with the important subject of today, which is why we chose to be located in KZN, and more specifically in the Richards Bay IDZ. 10 years ago, we stumbled into 45 million tons of waste steel slag, which contained significant amount of titanium within the slag, though of a lower grade when compared to conventional sources of titanium such as ilmenite and rutile, which we are used to, which are mined by Tronox and Richards Bay Minerals. This low-grade waste titanium steel slag had been generated by Highveld Steel and vanadium as a waste stream over 55 years of operation at their steel and vanadium manufacturing plant in Witbank in Mpumalanga. It is the existence of this abundant titanium slag that led to the formation of Nyanza Light Metals in 2011. And the objective was to investigate the possibility of extracting the valuable minerals from the discarded waste slag and producing world-class high-value titanium products. Edge, the global engineering firm, I think in the region it's well known. It's probably done quite a few projects within the province. Together with EY, performed the feasibility studies that have resulted in us today constructing what will become the only titanium value addition and chemicals manufacturing complex on the African continent that will produce the highly sought after titanium dioxide pigment. Sadly though, for Africa and South Africa, manufacturing of high value titanium dioxide pigment is currently not done on the continent or in the country, and is dominated by European and American producers who rely on primary raw materials from KZN in South Africa and Africa at large to produce these high value beneficiated titanium products. Nyanza's world-class chemical and mineral beneficiation complex will produce primarily 80,000 tons per annum of titanium dioxide pigment, which is widely used in manufacturing of industrial coatings, paints, cosmetics, paper, plastics, and other food ingredients. So when you look at titanium dioxide pigment, it's probably the most widely used raw material or chemical in the world. It touches literally everything in your life every day from when you wake up. So the paints that paint our buildings, 40% to 60% of that is pigment. That's your architectural paints. If you look at industrial coatings that are used in either ceramics or used in making of plastics, that's a pigment. If you look at your makeup, for the ladies that woke up today and they had to put makeup, it is pigment. It's a titanium pigment is a dispersant of color, and it's got what we call a high opacifying characteristic, which is quite key in some of these applications. If you look at even milk, pigment is also used as a whitening milk. It's used as a whitening toothpaste. So literally every day when you wake up, you are being touched by titanium pigment. The color on your car, the automotive sector, we're quite an influential supplier within that supply chain that determines the performance of color within that industry. So while we are largely a titanium dioxide pigment producer, Nyanza is a platform investment that will enable South Africa to build a new chemical manufacturing and mineral beneficiation industry, making other high value added products with huge export revenue generation potential, and products that will substitute imports of high value titanium products, and in the process creating modern high quality sustainable jobs. The important point about being a platform investment is that once you have an anchor operation that's at scale and processing certain minerals, by virtue of that, you open up other industries around it. You also create the opportunities of smaller or maybe scalable downstream value addition industries to also take advantage of the presence of such an operation. So Nyanza presents that opportunity for South Africa as a platform investment for a wider chemical and mineral beneficiation play. Alongside titanium dioxide pigment, we will also produce other high value chemical products such as gypsum, aluminum sulfate, Epsom salts, iron sulfates, which are used in cement manufacturing, agriculture, water treatment, as well in some medicinal applications. This does not speak to a water program director, which we didn't come for the medicinal properties of the water. As a platform company, as we speak, we are further developing the manufacturing capacity within and around Nyanza to make other high-value titanium products, such as titanium metal powders used in 3D printing, titanium carbide, which is used in producing wear-resistant slicing instruments, making other titanium nano powders, which are used in making other fourth industrial revolution technologies. These actions will make Richards Bay and KwaZulu-Natal a global center for titanium value addition excellence. We don't have this on the continent. And what we are building right now is the beginning of the journey. Nyanza complex occupies 67 hectares of land within the IDZ. Of that 67 hectares, 45 hectares will be fully built and covered with massive industrial operations, including 15 megawatts of solar and steam-fired power generation plants, which will reflect our strong commitment to our climate goals and ECG principles while we leverage emerging 4IR technologies. We aim to make this a modern plant that will outlive us, that will live beyond 60 years. And we have an opportunity, because we're starting on a clean slate, to actually bring in all these modern technologies and ideas and leverage on that while we build a modern chemical manufacturing facility. Nyanza's operation will employ more than 1,200 people through a construction period of 30 months. And once fully commissioned, we'll have directly employed 550 permanent staff. So in summary, Nyanza Light Metals is a privately owned 4.5 billion rand first round of investment South African titanium mineral processing project that enjoys direct and indirect support from the South African government through its quasi-government institutions like Trade and Investment KZN, Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, Richards Bay IDZ, and the provincial government. So now coming back to the topic of today, I think why most of you are here is why we chose KZN. So I thought maybe this is an opportunity to reflect as well as ourselves in terms of why we decided to look at KZN. We have a few good reasons that supported our business case, and this could be some of the reasons why you should also consider KZN as an investment destination. So we have got 4 broad areas that we probably summarize the main areas that appeal to us, that underscore or underpin the fundamentals that support our business. So the first one, there's a natural abundance of titanium mineral sands and slags in the province. KZN offered us an opportunity to create a transformative project. As you would know, South Africa, and particularly KZN, through Rio Tinto's Richards Bay Minerals, Tronox's own mines and others, South Africa is the second largest producer and exporter of titanium mineral sands in the world, contributing more than 22% of the total primary raw materials. While KZN is endowed with these primary raw materials or minerals, South Africa still imports 100% of the value-added titanium-related products, because there is no value addition capacity on in the country nor on the continent. So if you combine titanium resources on the African continent, we probably produce 45% of the global resources that feed into the global manufacturing of downstream value-added titanium products, and we import 100% of anything that's made after that on the continent. So this project is transformative in the sense that it moves us from just being a raw material producer, feeding the likes of China, US, Europe, to becoming a producer of high value products. Secondly, we need access to, this is the second broad point, we needed access to world-class infrastructure, as logistics is critical component to our operations. As an example, Nyanza will import a lot of sulfur and other bulk raw materials, while 70% of its production is earmarked for export. So when I was looking at your charts that talks about the countries that you export to from KZN, those are also the countries that we would be exporting largely our pigments to, both from the Americas to Europe, to Asia, and also on the African continent. And on the African continent in particular, we aim to take advantage of AFTA, the African Free Trade Continental Trade Agreement that has just come into effect. It's been long overdue, but hopefully we'll start to see the benefits of such actions. So coming back to the ports, the bulk raw materials, we move about 1.3 million tons of bulk raw materials in and out of Nyanza, bulk of it exported or traded regionally. So this requires proximity to bulk and container handling facilities for the movement of our imports and exports. Richards Bay and Durban Port offers us that infrastructure. So when they say it is the gateway to Africa or gateway out to other markets out of Africa, it is exactly that reason. In addition to the port infrastructure, Nyanza requires reliable rail infrastructure to be able to move the waste titanium slag from the Witbank and other chemicals products such as aluminum and iron sulfate, which will be shipped in bulk into mainland or exported into further north surrounding countries. With the rail lines already linking Richards Bay to the rest of the country, this was also a key decision point, as we can, the cost of trying to move on road certain bulk raw materials becomes a cost inhibitor, or it renders you uncompetitive against your competitors. We also needed access to the sea outflow line. As a chemical plant, we use a lot of water in our processes and generate an effluent that is environmentally compliant, but we produce it in volumes. And if we were to be located in mainland, we would need 3 times of the 67 hectares to be able to accommodate for the tailing dams facilities that would require. Now, in Richards Bay, we have access to the sea outflow line, which is managed by Mhlatuzi municipality, that we can use. This lowers our land requirements and costs drastically. The other critical infrastructure available to us include the natural gas pipeline that traverses across Richards Bay, which we use this gas in our drying processes. And we have replaced in our design totally all carbon utilization, as we aim to decarbonize our process or operations in line with our environmental sustainability goals. So that's on infrastructure. The third broad stroke was access to certain financial and non-financial incentives from government of South Africa, or through the DTIC, as it is called today. Part of them are the 12I manufacturing incentives and grants. Commercially, the South African government has boosted the project by making these special incentives available to us. So if you look at these incentives, we start with what are called the SEZ, or Special Economic Zone Feasibility Funding Grants, which we use or access to co-finance some of our early stage development. When you're doing feasibility studies, that is the most or the highest risk point of investment. And there are very few people who actually invest in that space. We see a lot of banks and DFIs that say they have that mandate, but try getting money out of those banks. It is quite a mission. So the SEZ feasibility funding grant makes that very feasible for us to co-finance some of these early stage project development and preparation programs. We also have been given a 900 million rand tax allowance, which will allow the investors to recoup investment much quicker. So SARS, our National Treasury, together with DTI, they give you almost what is equivalent to an assessed tax loss, which you write off any future profits or your early profits against. And only until you have exhausted that will you then start paying the requisite taxes or income tax. We also got training allowance up to 10 million to support for faster skills transfer and training. What we're building is an operation of high class or world class. And the skills we're talking about are not the general, mining type of skills. These are highly qualified chemical operatives. And coupled with that, we are also ushering in, 4IR technologies and trying to make sure that we remain committed to our ECG or climate goals. Now, doing that in this new era requires us to actually upskill and recognize that we have to do that at an early stage before we start our operation. So having this also helps in terms of us trying to do that. We're also being in the IDZ, you get a flat income tax rate of 15% for being in the IDZ compared to 28% if you're outside the zone. It's a no-brainer. It's a huge win. We also get accelerated depreciation and pre-cleared customs area that enables us to, our turnaround times in terms of exports or imports into our area to be moved around quite quickly. We also have a 10% duty protection on titanium dioxide pigment. This is important. In the industry we operate, understanding the global dynamics of titanium pigment, we as Africa, we consume about 130 to 150,000 tons per annum of titanium pigment, which is slightly under 3-4% of the global market. Global market, I think the demand supply balance is at about 6.5 million tons. The bulk of it is outside Africa, of course, with Europe, Asia, and America taking the bulk. So how the global producers, the DuPont chemicals, now it's Chemours, called Chemours, we've got the Huntsmans, they shut down an old plant which was close to 60 years old. And they still supply the same customers here using their manufacturing capacity in Europe. And what they do with the African market, it's used as what we call a manufacturing balancing platform. In times of high demand, you cut off a supply to that region and spike up the prices. Like what we're seeing now, the prices should be around about $3,300 to $3,600 a ton in Europe and other markets. In Africa, in South Africa, we're seeing the prices CIF going as high as $6,000 a ton. That's effectively just giving you a price to walk away. So Africa is used for such demand balancing for the manufacturers. When there's no demand, they come and dump in Africa, and they dump at low prices because they have excess capacity. Us coming into South Africa and having our own African plants gives security of supply and long-term contracts to the local paint producers who are at the mercy of the global producers. So that's, when you look at this 10% import duty and all these other measures that we've spoken about around commercial support from the South African government, you start to get a tangible aspect in terms of how or why it's important or why KZN remains good to us. Last but not least is the strong and supportive KZN provisional leadership led by the Honorable Premier Sihle Zikalala, together with the team from Trade and Investment KZN, and we have seen here. I think this year was a testament to the grit that the provincial leadership has, as it was confronted with multiple issues, including the Rio Tinto Richards Bay Minerals disaster or fatality that happened, as well as the business disruptions and vandalism that happened during the widespread social unrest between 9 to 18 July, which was largely pronounced in the KZN province. I think this was a very difficult time and everyone was watching to see how quickly will you bounce back. Some of the investments that we're talking about, these are fixed assets and investments. They don't fly out overnight. It's not money that we put on derivatives on the stock exchange. But at the core of the economy, people can plug it out. So when you have such investments and businesses in your region, it is very important for us to understand how strong or how quickly, because these incidents happen everywhere. Every country faces such challenges, but it is how quick they're able to respond and rectify the issues. And I must say, with your previous presentation, and we have been engaged with yourselves, we feel very comfortable in knowing that you have been tested through this period. We have seen you come up with other structures that will help you mitigate or prevent such situations in the future. So despite these difficulties, from the general social unrest, the KZN leadership has managed to avert further damage and put in more measures and structures to protect the businesses in the region. These four broad categories that I've just discussed: the transformative opportunity, access to world-class infrastructure, the financial support from the DTIC, and the strong KZN provincial leadership are some of the reasons we chose to be in the KZN in Richards Bay. And despite this recent unrest and disturbances, these reasons still underscore the strong fundamentals that underpin our 4.5 billion rand Nyanza Titanium Mineral Beneficiation Project. In conclusion, I'd like to close by saying there are many other reasons we could highlight why Nyanza chose Richards Bay in KZN. I hope what I've shared with you today helps those considering KZN as an investment destination understand the advantages that come with the location, and would be very excited to see other projects with such scale join us in the KZN and Richards Bay. I thank you.